Hi, this is PatZi with a Z. Welcome to Joy on Paper Live, a program for writers and those who dream of writing, and for everyone who wants to know the story behind the book. And boy, oh boy, does my guest have a story behind her book. And her name is Donna Marie Hayes, and she is not just an author, she's an actress, a cabaret singer, and a model. Wow, so much. Hi, Donna.
Hi, Patsy. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, this is so much fun. As you know, when you were on my radio program, I was just so taken with you, your personality. And you were bubbly at the time, and I thought, "Oh, at the time I didn't have any idea I was going to be doing this YouTube station." That's how fast it came up. Um,
Wow.
I had the ninth anniversary of the radio program, and I said, "Oh my goodness, I have to do something big." So I started this YouTube channel.
Oh, amazing. Congratulations on that.
Well, thank you. And the great thing is now I can see people and I can help share their stories because one of the things, I mean, this book came out a while back, and
October of
unfortunately,
23.
yeah, and
Mhm.
unfortunately in this business, books come and go. They go down that river and then nobody talks about them and nobody invites you to talk about it. No, you don't get invited on programs very often about your book.
Right.
And that's what I hope to do here on YouTube. If a book is great, and a book is great, I want the author to come back. I want to
Oh,
talk
yeah.
about it. When I do events and I go to meetings and stuff, I carry these books with me and I say, "You got to read this." And
Wow.
so now I can do it right here on YouTube. So it's lots of fun.
That's
Now,
wonderful.
because I was so impressed with you, you did something I love. One of the titles that I put under your name, cabaret singer. Now, in my dreams, I see myself as a cabaret singer.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen the movie Annie Hall, Woody Allen's movie,
Yes.
and there Diane Keaton gets up and she sings.
Yes.
Seems like old times. Now, I I imagine myself doing that one day, being brave enough.
You should go
I
for it.
but I bet you could sing that song. You could belt that out.
Yeah. Which,
Yeah.
which, which, I know she got up and sang. Which
Seems
song?
like, oh, I'm not gonna sing it. Old times.
Oh, it seems like
It,
old time. Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
that one. I love that one.
Yes.
But anyway, I was so impressed with you, and so I decided to do a little video for you. So here, you
Okay.
watch this, and then we'll come back.
Into strength and step around the highway, New York, New York. I wanna wake in the city that doesn't sleep to find I'm a free I was just passing that doesn't sleep to find I'm a free
Okay.
That is so cool.
Well,
Wow.
I wanted everybody to realize it's called These Broken Roads, and then when they see it in Times Square on a billboard, I mean, what could be better than that?
That's awesome. Thank you. That is beautiful. Thank you. I'm so touched.
I think it's important that people see this and that they see just well how impressive you are and that you've written a book I think that's helped people and I know it's helped people and I want just to share it a little bit and you have something at the beginning of your book and
Mhm.
this is what you write at the beginning. You are not, well, why don't you read it?
Sure. You are not the darkness you endured. You are the light that refused to surrender.
And I thought that was such a beautiful, beautiful way to begin your book.
Thank you.
Because as people will discover as we go through it, well, you endured a lot, and sort of the subtitle is really Scammed and Vindicated, One Woman's Story. But it's so much more than that, even. And so, first, before we get into the story, because to me it's a little bit horrific, but I think it would be nice for people to just get to know you a little bit and a little
Sure.
bit of your background. And you sent me some photos, and I want you to talk about them. Who is this
Oh,
little girl?
that is me. I was born in Jamaica, West Indies. I was born in the countryside. Well, actually, I was born in Kingston, but I was raised in the country with my grandmother. And that's a picture of me. I have to be about, I would say, 7 or 8 there. And we lived in Duncan's Trelawney. It's in, this is the early 60s. So it's a time when we didn't have running water, we didn't have electricity, we didn't have a lot of money. So it was kind of the bare minimum. But I just remember as a little girl, my grandmother and my step grandfather, they would go to the market quite often to sell fruits or what have you. And I was left by myself a lot, especially at the time when I was not able to go to school. I was not old enough to go to school yet. So I was left a lot by myself, and they had lots of animals and pigs and goats and cows and horses and dogs and cats. So I guess to this day, that's why I love animals so much, because I spent a lot of time with animals. And that is really when I discovered my love for performing, believe it or not. I would sing and have concerts for the animals, and they were my captive audience. I would just sit and sing and put on shows and put on plays. But to that end, I also remember being incredibly lonely and sad a lot. If you read in my book, my parents were in the States. So as a little girl, the way I interpreted that is that I was not good enough to be in the States with my mom and my little sister. So each night before I would go to bed, I would actually get on my knees and pray to their pictures, believing that they could hear me. And I would tell them about all the good things that I've done, that I said my grace before I ate, that I helped with the chores, that I did my homework. You know, all throughout my life, I carried this sense of I'm not good enough, so I have to do a little extra to prove that I am. And sometimes trauma and things that happen to us in our lives it kind of forms behaviors that we carry through. And so, I moved to the US. Finally, I moved to the US to live at age 14. Today is the anniversary, coincidentally, of the day that I moved here, July 17th, 1976. This is so interesting that we're having this conversation. But it was 48 years ago today that I moved to the States to finally live
Oh,
with my
oh
mom.
my goodness, you don't look. I was, I was thinking you're in your 30s, so, but
I'm in my 60s.
I don't believe it. But you can see in this space, you can see that there's a serious part of you that you were just taking a lot, I think, upon you. But you have another photo here, and it's not the best photo, but who is this?
This is my grandmother. And in my book, you hear me talk a lot about mama. And this is mama. This is my mother's mother. So when my mom had me, she left me with my grandmother. She also left my older sister with my grandmother, but after a while, she moved to Kingston. So Mama was like my mother. Now, she was not the most demonstrative or the most, touchy feely person, but she was a good woman and she cared for me and she gave me all that she could afford to give me. And my mom would send things, clothing and things like that. But this is my version of a mom. She raised me until I was 14. So yeah, this is mama.
Well, as you said, it's in the book, and it's very touching the way you write about her and about your life at that time. And people, sometimes just don't appreciate their life until they read about the struggles that other people go through. And really, what you went through was so much. Now, when you landed up in the States, there's quite a story behind that.
Yes.
And why don't you tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll start talking about the book.
Sure. So this was not my first time in the States. I came to the States for vacation in the summer of 1974 and in the summer of 1975. But July 17th, 1976 was the day I actually moved to live. And I just remember just being awestruck, just looking around. I was finally in America, and it was just, you know, the first two times I came, it was the same experience. I was in awe of just the traffic lights and everyone's living indoors. That was so new to me because in Jamaica, we were always walking. We didn't have a car, so if we had to get anywhere, we would have to walk. We would hike up to get fruit, and we take care of the animals. So everything was done outdoors. So that was very different for me. The food that we ate in Jamaica, everything that you ate, you either killed, unfortunately, or you picked it from a tree, or you harvested, whatever the case may be. And here in the States, everyone was eating things out of bags, and there was fast food and McDonald's and I didn't know what that was. And I remember when I tried them, I thought, ew. But as time progressed, I'm like, okay, this is not so bad. And, that's a whole nother story. But it was just so different. Even the schooling system, because I came here at 14, July of 76, and then I went to high school in September of 1976. And I was so not used to just the way the children behaved. They would talk back to the teachers, they would throw things at the teachers, they would cuss at the teachers, they would fight. I mean, in Jamaica, you could be beaten by the teachers if you spoke out. You literally had to hold your hand out and they would lash you in your hands. And the severity of the lashing depended on the severity of whatever it is that you did. So to come to this country and to sit in a classroom where children are going wild, and unfortunately for me, I was new to the country. I had a very heavy accent. I didn't have fancy clothes. I had the worst acne. And because of that, I was bullied all throughout high school. And I talk about that in my book, how these 5 girls would just target me. And I would go to the teachers and they were helpless. They said, just stay out of their way. Really? That's the response? Just stay out of their way? And then I could not go to homeroom because they were in my homeroom. And I would have to sit in my guidance counselor's office during homeroom just to kind of not be hit or kicked or pushed.
Well, I think that's one of the stories in your book that I appreciated, and I could sympathize, because it's funny, although I'm, from the States, I'm from northern Michigan though. And when we moved to the city, we moved from northern Michigan, which is rural, and where we had the chickens,
Yeah.
and we did our own milking and all of that. And then we moved to the city, and we moved to Detroit.
Mhm.
And well, when up north, we had a bit of an accent. So when I arrived, I'm talking like this. have a little bit of accent, and we were not
Yeah.
rich, and our clothes were homemade, or from.
Mhm.
And the other kids, oh, they got on me real fast. And on top of it, I had a terrible teacher who didn't like left-handed people, and she made me sit on my left hand. Yeah, I was in third grade when we moved. So I was in third grade, and she made me sit on my hand, and I talking like this, and they all making fun of me. And, so it was a rough,
Wow,
rough
that's
time.
so
So
traumatizing for a young
yeah,
child.
it is. But boy, oh boy, when you decided to overcome it, you overcame it.
There's always been this energy with me, even as a little girl, and I'm not sure I know really how to describe it, except that I've always felt that I was not alone, that I could overcome no matter what it is. On the other side of it, I've always believed that, even though I didn't have anyone to teach me that. I think that was an inherent belief That was an innate belief that I could push through and get to the other side. Because I just remember those being very difficult years. Because, as you know, I was heavily in the church as well. And the church was very, very strict. So my mom would choose. In any case, the church was very, very strict. So we weren't allowed to do a lot of things. We weren't allowed to like go to the movies. Like I'd never been to the movies. We weren't allowed to go. I didn't go to a prom. We weren't allowed to go to the park. We weren't allowed to go to anything. We weren't allowed to listen to secular music. We weren't really so those I spent 6 years and 10 months with my mom from age 14 till age 21. And after I came out into the world on my own, after I ran away, and everyone can read about that horrible story, the world was this brand new place. I didn't, the music that was playing, I didn't understand it. I've never heard that before. And I remember the first time I sat in a movie theater, I was awestruck, like, wow, so it's just, I felt as if it was so similar to when I came to this country, being so awestruck. I was awestruck again after I left the church because it was so restricting. There was very little that you can do as far as entertainment. All you had to focus on was going to school, going to church, and praying for the most part.
But you decided to get an education and tell
Yeah.
us how that happened. What you got through high school, and then where'd you go?
Got to high school and then I went to Hunter College. And by then I was, performing. I was the lead in a church production, and that just made me even more excited. So I got accepted to Hunter College, where I studied theater and mass communications. Then during that time, after I got my degree, even while I was studying, I was doing a lot of local productions and different plays and performing and what have you. And then, college was interesting. Wasn't as traumatizing as high school, but it was interesting, and I got through it. And yeah, and then I started in the Americas, not only in the U.S. but also in Latin America. So I have a lot of experience there in HR, and I also worked in equity research for a period of time. I'm even Series 7 and Series 6 with 3 registered when I worked in a brokerage house. So that was my other life up until last year when my book came out and I decided to focus on this.
It just, I mean, I know how many years you were in these different businesses, and it just, I, you look so young. I think you look like 38, and yet you were in
I
business for 38 years.
I get that a lot. Dr. Oz had me on his show once for people who look younger than their ages. I think it's a genetic thing. My mom got her first gray hair, I think, at 70, so we don't get gray hairs, whatever, until later in life. And
Oh
we
gosh.
don't get gray. It's just a genetic thing, which I'm, believe me, not complaining about.
No.
But but my career on Wall Street was really interesting. And it only goes to show that if you push yourself, no matter what is going on, no matter what the obstacles are, because if you read in my book, during that time, I had gone through two very awful marriages. The second one was really physically and emotionally abusive. And so my professional life was going superb. I was doing well.
You were.
Personally, I was struggling because of the people that I chose to
We'll
let in my
we'll
life.
get to that in a minute, because I
Yeah.
like very much what you say, that you can start off in such a place that it seems impossible that you're ever going to rise above it. I mean, you're a kid. You're feeding chickens, for goodness sakes. You're running around bare feet.
Yeah.
You're just, and you get these dreams maybe of what you can be someday, that you can be something.
Mhm.
Oh, and you obviously had dreams and you made it happen, and you worked
Yeah.
hard and you did all these wonderful things, and then something happened. And that
Yeah.
that brings us to the book
To
and
the book.
these broken roads. And boy, oh boy, that's a good title. So,
Yes.
it's so sort of traumatic, but that you come through it. I mean, that's the important thing. And some women
Uh,
don't. Some women
yeah.
don't. And some women get themselves in a position of absolute danger from this kind of stuff. So, tell us the story now. Oh, tell us
Okay.
about it.
So
Scammed.
just
Scammed is a big word.
yes. So just to kind of back up a little bit, just to give context. So I ran away from my mom's home and I married my first husband, which is my daughter's father. My daughter is 38, she'll be 39 in January. And then he was terrible. He disappeared, left me in a roach rat infested apartment with his father. Then I got away and then I met my second husband and I stayed with him for about 19 years and he was physically and emotionally abusive. Finally, I got away from him. I literally escaped. I planned my escape. And then I moved into the city. I was now living in Manhattan, which was a dream of mine, in a high rise apartment overlooking the East River. It was magical. And I decided at that time that I would take time to heal. I had gone through an awful lot. So I decided to go into therapy. I took the time to go into therapy. I started singing. I did a lot of shows. I wrote a few shows, performed them in different venues in Manhattan. It was wonderful. I was having the time of my life. My career was blooming. However, because we're human beings, after 8 years by myself, after not having a relationship in my mind that was had been functional in any way, I wanted to meet my person. And I believe that my person was out there. I didn't want to sit in the movie theater by myself and watch a movie. I wanted to watch it with someone else. I didn't want to sit and go out and have dinner by myself. I wanted to share my life with someone. I was now in my mid 50s. And so therefore I wanted that more than anything. I wanted to experience what it would be like to have a relationship that was not abusive, a relationship that where someone truly cares for you, where someone didn't have a hidden agenda, where they didn't think that your success is something that if they hung in there, they could benefit from, really not caring anything at all about me. So they already gone through a lot. They have established themselves in their careers and their lives. And therefore, it's probably someone that, has done with the foolishness, whatever that may be. I have not done a lot of foolishness in my life, but many people have. And so in January of 2016, I decided to go on this website and I met a few people, but the only person that I went out with was this guy. And we met, we talked for a bit, exchanged pictures, exchanged contact information. We talked for a bit. And what I liked about him was the fact that he was divorced. He had a son, two sons rather. He was a doting father and a doting son to his mom. And he just seemed like a really nice, caring, smart, um, wonderful human being. We would talk a lot about God and animals and this and that. And so I decided to meet him. And we met at a Thai restaurant on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. It was a very, very cold day. I remember walking to the restaurant after getting off the subway, and I sat. We were supposed to meet at 6:15. I think he was a little late, and then I met him, and he seemed like a really nice guy. The conversation just flowed naturally. That's what I thought, and he would ask a lot of questions. He wanted to know a lot about my career and what I have done. And at that time I interpreted that to mean that he was genuinely interested in me and who I was, which is, if based on my history, is something that I needed someone to care about what I had to say. I need someone to have just an interest in me, because in my past I was pretty much used. And after that first date, then he went home and we continued chatting on the phone. Then we would go out more often to the movies, to dinners. Sometimes he would pay, sometimes I would pay. But as time progressed, we spent every weekend together. I met his cousin. I met his sister. I met his niece. I FaceTime with his mom. I FaceTime with his son. He FaceTime with my daughter almost every week. So this was someone, he practically was staying in my apartment, stuffed animals for Valentine's Day, and surprised me with gifts and this and that. And as I would look over my text messages, there was so much that he would say about how he even asked me to marry him. And so when you think of scams, you do not think about someone that is immersed in your life. You do not think about the scammer. You could turn your head and look at your scammer sleeping next to you. You think of someone in a faraway land, hiding behind a computer screen, taking on the identity of taking on a false identity. You don't think about that the person who said they love you, who asked you to marry you, is really your scammer. And that is what happened.
One of the things about the book, as you're telling this story and you're explaining it, I think we should add that because of your very successful career, you had some money.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like, you had a few $1,000s in the bank. So
Right.
we had a situation here where you have money. So obviously, this guy must have realized this pretty, I don't know if he knew it from day
Well,
one, but boy, oh boy, he targeted you.
yeah, I mean, I live on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, which is a pretty affluent neighborhood, if you will. And I worked on Wall Street. I was a managing director on Wall Street. So, I believe I was a mark from the beginning. And as the story progresses and you go through the book, you'll realize that it was all a plan. But it was difficult for me to see that then because I was seeing him every weekend. It's not as if I wasn't seeing him. But in any case, I was living in Manhattan and I talked with him a few times about buying a house. I was approaching retirement and I wanted to purchase property because rent in Manhattan is really, really expensive. And when I retire, I'm like, do I want to continue to live in Manhattan or do I want to get my own home? And I was kind of on the fence about it. I would look at different listings. Apartments in Manhattan is, in excess of $1 million. Couldn't afford to do that. So his cousin, who I do not talk about because there's ongoing litigation there. So we won't even talk about this person. But this person owned a property in Waterbury, Connecticut. And my boyfriend at the time would talk a lot about this cousin's house and that his cousin purchased this property and this property's just been sitting there because he doesn't really have the money to renovate it. And so why don't you at least take a look at it? Take a look at it. It's 3 floors. The top floor has 3 bedrooms, the second floor has 2 bedrooms, and the bottom floor has 1 bedroom. He just did the siding and the roof. I don't know much about that stuff, but the siding and the roof and the plumbing and this and that, that he had done some work. And I kept saying, why are you talking so much about this house? He says, because I think that it could be a great deal for you. I could manage the property. I could be the super and you could pay me whatever, because at the time, because of his history, his criminal history, he was having a tough time holding down a job. And during that period of time, now that I look back, I was remodeling him like an old house. I wrote his resume. I did his cover letter. I connected him with people who could hire him. I did mock interviews with him. I wrote his thank you letters, all thinking that he really, really wanted a job. And he would go on these interviews. It's not that he wouldn't go, he would put on his suit and he would go on these interviews. So I was in the process of trying to get him employment with my connections during this whole time of the house. So it's as if we were kind of both kind of helping each other, I thought, if you will. So the day came where we planned to go to see the house. And we drove up. I have allergies. I'm not crying, I promise.
I might start crying.
We drove up to the house in Waterbury, Connecticut. It was in the spring of 2017. And I saw the house, and it was everything that he said. You know, the top floor, the middle, the second floor, the bottom floor. And I spent hours there. It had just snowed, and we walked around in the snow outside, and we looked at the property, and he showed me all the things that I needed to know. I asked questions. I even have a video of him explaining everything to me. And, you know, that he had had the discussion with his cousin, and his cousin wants it off his hands, but I had the money to invest in it to make it interesting, make it a lucrative situation. Because although I was not ready to move there, this is a property that could begin to generate income for me and potentially for him until I'm ready to actually live there. So after I saw the house, I spent some time thinking about it, spent some time doing some research, and then I decided that I would go ahead and purchase the house from his cousin. Now, my boyfriend was the middle person. He's the one that, you know, I was having the conversation with. And at the time, I was doing a lot of traveling, I was performing, I was doing a lot of work on the West Coast. So there were many times I was not even in the city. And I would give him the money, not all at once. It was in different chunks, and he was handling all of the remodeling. Frankly, I would do that with someone, obviously someone not like that, because I would rather, you know, I'd go to look at it, you tell me what we need, and we put together a plan, and that's how it is. And he would give me a play-by-play. Whenever I would call him, he would say, oh, today we worked on, I don't know, the roof or the plumbing or the room where you're going to put your piano. We finished that room today. And I'm getting flowers for your garden. I know how much you love a garden because your grandmother had a garden. And I know you always talk about your garden, having a garden of flowers.
Oh,
So
wow. Oh, wow.
by the front yard, as you come into the house, I've put this garden there. And so when you come into the house, it's going to be the first thing that you see. I want that for you. And I believed him. And so we continued with the remodeling. He would give me a play by play. Sometimes he would go as far as telling me about the argument that he had with the workers that day. He would say, today, you know, they took too long on their lunch hours. And I'm not happy about that because time is money. And I would tell them it's 30 minutes for your lunch. And sometimes they would come back 35, 40 minutes because they were on their phone. And I get so upset at them. And I said, babe, don't worry about it. Just don't stress yourself out. You know, we're getting it done, da, da, da. So, you know, when the house was finished, this was now a few months later in May, I'd given him all of the money and he said, the house is finished. He, not me, he suggested that we spend the weekend there. He said, the tenants aren't coming until June 1st. Let's go and spend the weekend so you can see and live in this space and appreciate this space. So the Wi-Fi is hooked up. There's plumbing, so, you know, you have water, we have electricity. And he even said, you know, remember when we went to the mall and we saw those, they look like air mattresses, but this is him speaking. Remember when we went to the mall and we saw those, I don't remember what it was called, but let's call it an air mattress. We could use those. We can bring a few of those because I was thinking of staying in a hotel near the property. He says, I know you like hotels, but wouldn't it be nice to stay in the property itself? And I was like, oh, that's a romantic and cool idea. So I
I was
started
just, I was just going to use that word. I was going to say, oh, how romantic.
romantic. He said that. And so I called it in the book, I call it my romantic. That was a Tuesday. That Wednesday, similar thing. I'm not in the mood for talking. I think I'm coming down with something, what have you. And that was strange. That Thursday morning, because the last time that I saw him was that Monday when I gave him the last of the money. And I remember giving him the money, and he drove me to my office. My office was on 6th Avenue. And I remember him pulling up to the front of my building, and he got out of the driver's seat and he came and he opened the door and he gave me a kiss and he says, I love you, Chica, because he called me Chica. And I am so excited for you. You're going to love this property and this life. I remember him saying something like that. And then he got in the car and the car drove away. And that's the last time I ever saw of him. So that was that Monday. The Tuesday and the Wednesday was, oh, the sore throat, the this, the that. The Thursday morning, he sent me a text saying, Donna, my mother passed away. Now that was completely credible. That was completely plausible for me because I have been talking to his mom, and she was in fact ill. She was a very frail woman. She was less than 100 pounds, and she was a heavy smoker and all the things. So I believed him. And I just hurt for him because I know how close he would take her to all his mother's. He would take his mom to all of her doctor's appointment, and he would take pictures. But now I know
Yeah.
it was just to get me comfortable. He would take pictures of her in the hospital bed or in the doctor's office or whenever she's not feeling well, whenever she was sleeping in her bed. I remember there's a picture of her sleeping in her bed and there's a cross above her bed, and he would take me a picture and say, I can't come today because my mom's not feeling well. So when you say your mother passed away, I completely believe that. And as time progressed, he's making the plans and he's planning the wake and the funeral. And what was interesting, he did not invite me to the funeral. And that's when it all started saying, well, this is really strange. You know the movie with Reese Witherspoon is called Wild. I don't know if you know the movie, but she wanted to go in the woods. She wanted to get away from society and just live in the woods because her life was whatever unraveling. And I remember him using that and saying, just like Reese Witherspoon in Wild, I want to go just in the woods. I am so sad. I can't live without my mother. And it was around that same time that it was my birthday. My birthday was actually a couple weeks later when he was supposed to be after he had buried her. And he said he couldn't spend my birthday with me because he needed to be with her things. Now, granted, he sent me a picture of the funeral there's someone in a casket. She's holding there's a rosary that she's holding over her chest. The face is not clear. And I see a picture of his sister kneeling in front of this coffin. So it all made sense. Why would someone send me a picture of a coffin to say that their own mother had died if she hadn't? Which I later found out when I sued him that she never died. But I believed that for a period of time. He wouldn't talk to me, and he would use the fact that he was grieving his mother why he was not talking to me. And I just would talk to some of my friends, and they would say, Donna, everyone grieves differently. So give him some time and give him some space. This is a terrible shock for him. So I did that. And I allowed him to be where he needed to be and do what he needed to do to get past this. But time was passing by and he wasn't he wasn't coming to see me. He hadn't come to see me since that Monday morning when I gave him the last bit of money. Now, me, when I have bad things happen in my life, I want someone, I want to be with someone. I want the comfort of someone. I want to talk to the person that I love most in the world to hug and comfort me and be with me. And because that's what I would do, but that's not what he was doing. And the reason he said he didn't invite me to the funeral because they live in a really bad neighborhood of the Bronx, and it's a dilapidated funeral home, and it's embarrassing, and his sisters are all falling apart, and he knows I don't like environments that are like that. And so I believed him. The same reason he told me why he didn't want me to, I never visited his apartment, which I tell everyone, go to his apartment, see where this person lived. Now, what he used, now in my book, there was this awful incident with rats. I don't know if you remember that, but there was an incident with rats, and he used that. He said there is this outbreak of rats in my apartment, and the people are coming, the exterminators are coming, and they're doing all the things. And so he said, I know how terrified you are of rats. And he says there are drug addicts in the building, and you walk in the building and you see people on heroin. And I don't like those kind of environments. So I'm like, you know what?
Yeah, no kidding.
You know what? That's okay. You could come to my place. And, because I thought he lived with his mom. Now I know that he's lived with his girlfriend all along. But in any case,
okay,
yeah.
Can I start crying now? Because at this point we're talking about being scammed, and I think people at this point, after hearing this much, I mean, they want to know how much money, because I would cry. I did cry once when I lost a $20 bill. I mean, I lost the 20, and then I realized I dropped it in the store, and I was crying, and I went back and I searched that store until I found it. And
Wow.
it's really funny. I found it, but I had cried for $20. So
Yeah.
well, let's sort of put it in perspective.
All in all, is $177,000.
Okay, repeat that.
$177,000 in total is what I lost. And maybe this is not a healthy way to look at it, but what are you going to do? I think that there was this duality to this, because not only did he rob me, but he broke my heart. Yeah. And he timed it perfectly, because it was around the same time that I had foot surgery. And I remember he said that he was going to come and pick me up after my I had a bunion surgery. And of course he didn't show up. And when I woke up, I had to call a friend to, she came to meet me and take me home. But the doctors, I woke up out of anesthesia crying and calling his name. Because I asked them, is he here? They said he's not here. And I was calling him in the throes of whatever anesthesia I was under. And, I remember being home in pain on crutches, at the same time coming to the realization that someone that I loved that much had done that to me. And I had a difficult time believing that it had happened. So someone suggested that I contact a lawyer, which I did. I contacted a lawyer, and the lawyer wrote a letter to him and his cousin. And when he received the letter, he called my lawyer and actually taunted him and said, prove it. Prove that she gave me money. I dare you to prove it. And so I called my lawyer, and my lawyer said, my office is not far from the house. I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to go see the house. I said, the tenants must be like all confused, because he won't meet with me to give me an information pass on the deed and all the things. And I remember my lawyer calling me and says, Miss Hayes, there is no remodeled house. And I said, no, 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 you must have gone to the wrong address. Because I would not believe that the house was not fully renovated. The play by play, the flowers, the piano room, the jacuzzi, all the things. I said, no, 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 you must have gone to the wrong address. And I repeated the address. He says, no, Miss Hayes, I went to the right address. And he says, I'll send you pictures. And when he sent me the pictures, for the first time, I realized what had happened. Because there was a part of me that kind of sensed it, but I didn't want to believe it. Our love, I thought, was so pure and so strong, and so he was just so doting and so caring, and pick me up and take me here and spend every weekend with me. So I didn't think that, this man says, I want to marry you, I want to spend the rest of my life with you. While he was, he put up my television, all my pictures that were hung up, he put it up. My room darkening curtains, he put up, and we would do laundry together. And, when I bought a new TV, he sat up the entire night putting the TV together. So I'm like, no, it's impossible that this man did this. And I did not believe it until I said, you know what? Let me go back on the website and let me see if he's still there or if he's there at all. And I went back on the website and I searched and searched and searched until I found him. He had a new profile name. He had a new picture. Some of the pictures, as bold as he was actually taken in my apartment and in my gym downstairs. One of the shirts that he was wearing was my running shirt. And he listed himself as an accountant, and he listed himself as, this amazing person. And I remember it was as if my skin was crawling as I looked at him, and his son was with him in his profile picture. His son that I talked to on a regular basis. This man would sit on my couch and help his son night after night with his homework on an iPad. That's how. So it was like, who is this person? I don't know this person. But yes, he was back on the site to get his next victim. That's the only thing that I can conclude. And I immediately called the dating site and reported him. And I gave them all of the information, and they said, they called me, they reached back out to me, and they says, we're not able to tell you how we handled it, but rest assured that it was. So I'm not sure what they did there. But in that moment, what he never in a million years expected me to go after him. Because he's always said to me, you love everybody, you trust everybody, you have such a good heart. You're so caring and so sweet, and everything scares you. You don't like confrontation. You don't like this. You don't like that. So when he did that, he assumed that I would just run away and hide in the shadows. But I decided that, no, my love, I'm coming for you. I went to the FBI. I went to the district attorney's office. I went to the IRS. I went to any organization that he was affiliated with in any way, shape, or form, and reported him. I went to the police. I filed a police report. I did all of the things. And that was so freeing, because historically, I'm the type of person, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to forgive and let God, which is what we were taught in church, let God take care of them. But forgiveness is self-forgiveness as well. I said, because, all of the resentment, all of the anger, all of the pain that he was, knowing what I had just been through, how could you have done that to me? And, I said it was very freeing for me to go after him. And then I filed a lawsuit, and I won. by default because he didn't show up. And yeah, but what's interesting, which you don't know, this is going to be new information for you, is that once the judgment was now on the books in the courts, I would get letters in my mail on a regular basis from all these enforcement companies who said, allow us to, we see that you have this judgment, because by now it's like $260,000. We see you have this judgment on the book, allow us to go after him. And I would say, you know what? I'm not going to be bothered with all of that. You know what? I already filed the lawsuit. The judgment is against him. Anything that he does, any work that he does, his wages will be garnished. If he buys a car, if he buys a house, whatever he does, I'm not going to go after that. Until one day, I got this letter from this woman who wrote this very compelling letter. It says, I can find him if he has money. And in March of this year, she found it. And he's living up in New York somewhere, so upstate somewhere. I don't remember. Rockland County. I think it's in Rockland County. And they found an account. It's not a lot of money. It was like about $20,000 in an account with his name. And they grabbed it because I'd fill out all the paperwork telling them go for it, find him. And they found it was about $20,000, and they grabbed it. So he immediately called them and said, "Who are you? And what is this? Why do you have access to my accounts?" Da, da, da. And he says, "Look, there's a judgment against you in the state of New York. That was won by default by Donna Marie Hayes, and any money that you have will be taken. And I'm glad you're sitting because you need to sit for what I'm gonna be telling you next." He asked her if she would ask me if I would be willing to not take all of it, just take 10,000, and he would set up a payment plan, and he'd pay me $180 per week for the remaining 10. The amount of expletives that flew from my mouth that day, and it's not a lot of money, but it's some sort. And he says, I have 5 kids. And he was pleading with her. Maybe he does, or maybe he's just being himself. And I says, no, grab every penny. And this woman says, I'm not even going to charge you a fee.
Good for her. Good for you.
I'm not going to charge you a fee. She says, if he buys a house, he can't put anything in his name, a car, he can't work anywhere without his wages being garnished. And that's the vindication. That's the part where you take your power back. My life is going on perfectly fine. I wrote an award-winning book because of the story that you gave me. That was the impetus why I wrote the book. Of course, my book is a lot about other things. And that, to me, was an amazing, amazing start.
Well, I love it. I love it. I'm glad you grabbed it. And I love that woman.
Yes. And she says, if I don't care where he goes, I'm on top of it. So she says, I'm not even going to charge you a fee.
That is great. That is
great. She said, I've handled lots of cases, but I don't think I've ever handled one that has touched me more than this one. And so she says, it's my personal mission.
Oh, that's beautiful.
He cannot have anything in his name. So he can do one of two things. He could either work and his wages will be garnished, or get a house and I'll take it, or whatever, or he can go live under a bridge. I'm fine either way. Yes.
Because your book has won a lot of awards. And in the video, I showed some of them, but explain some of the awards that you have won.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just had the award dinner for the New York City Big Book Award. I won in the nonfiction African American category. I walked up on the stage and accepted an award. I was like, what? But look, I was on the Tamron Hall show in October of last year, and to talk about the story, because I was just beginning my press tour. And in the end of the book, I talk about this man that I met, that I decided, I'm not going to run away and hide for 8 years like I did after the last one. I'm going to go back on a website, but now I'm going to do all the things. I'm going to check everything, even blood type. And I
So,
met an amazing guy, and it's now 5 years, and I'm incredibly happy.
oh, that's wonderful. So tell us now that you know what to do, what is the advice that you want to give to women? And that certainly they'll learn through your book. And that's why I think people should read it. The story is
Mhm.
fascinating. It is so well written.
Oh,
And
thank
it
you.
really once you read this, it sticks with you.
Yeah. I think that before you go into a relationship, make sure you're complete and whole in yourself, because abuse and trauma makes you like, this sticky paper like you put up to hang to get flies. I've seen them. I think they're gross, but it's like crap just sticks to you because you attract brokenness. And all the relationships that I've been in, except this one, I knew that something, listen to your gut. But you so want love, you so much want affection, and it's normal and it's natural. But make sure you want it for the right reason. Make sure you've done the work on yourself, where you show up into a relationship completely whole, where the person is just the dessert, you're the main course. And so when you show up in a relationship broken and, with self-limiting beliefs, you don't have to have a man. But if you want to have a man, make sure you make yourself the priority. And as I go back through this experience, after it happened, I didn't want to tell anybody. I says I was ashamed, because you see me, I project this image in corporate America. I'm a managing director, I'm doing all the things. I got involved with someone who did this to me, and I wouldn't talk about it until one day I'm like, you know what? I didn't do anything wrong. I don't have anything to be ashamed of. I'm going to start telling my story. So I'll start telling my story in my Zumba class, in the laundry room, on the subway, whoever would listen. And I heard about so many women. There's this one woman, she was a retired teacher. He proposed to her, and then he stole all of her retirement. Now she has to go back to work. When I was working on my cabaret show, which was my launch event, one of the women working the front desk, she says, I read your book, and the same thing happened to me, and I had to move into a shelter. There was a young woman who I met, or you are the person. You're the one that's important. Take care of yourself and listen to your gut. If there are red signals, if there are red flags, address them. Ask questions. What is this? No, no, no. I don't understand that. I need to understand XYZ. But quite often we don't ask those questions because we were taught, whether directly or indirectly, I know I was, to, you know what, people are good, trust people, God loves us all, no one's better than anybody else. um a man is just going to be a man, all the bullshit that we have been taught. So we show up um without our power. We show up believing that you're not good enough to find someone. I go back to that little girl who believed that she was not. And I now know that I carried it with me in my relationships. So you have to do the work. Pay attention to the red flags, and never let money come into play. Let him have his own money. You have your own money. If you're doing something together, then you share. Not you, but we're desperate to please. As women, sometimes we are desperate to please. We have, this view that because of unprocessed trauma, that let me please because I'm not good enough as I am, that I have to do something extra. That's why I prayed to the pictures, because I had to show them I'm doing my homework, and I'm helping milking the cow, and I'm saying my grace, because I didn't feel I was good enough. And that has carried and followed me in my life until to this point.
well, that brings me to the next screen because
Mm.
here,
Yes.
your dedication. Do you want to read this?
Yes. This book is dedicated to all the little girls who suffer in silence, swirling around in feelings of inadequacy and unworthiness, yearning for scraps of attention and emotional nourishment. You may not hear this often, but you are a beautiful and unique being and matter so much more than you realize. Always have and always will be.
And that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And that brings us to something else.
Yeah.
This is,
Yeah. So
I wanted you to explain this.
yes, after this happened, this happened in 2017. In 2018, I decided to become a certified coach to help primarily women who needs to realize that they are rock stars within themselves, and to coach women to see things through a different lens, because sometimes we see the lens through the lens our parents gave us, or the lens society gave us, or the lens the church gave us, or whatever, or the lens our trauma gave us. So I started a company. It was called Distinguished Coaching. I just rebranded it to Donna Marie Hayes Coaching to make it more cohesive with the book. So this is my coaching practice that I have, where I have clients, where I coach them to live their rock star lives.
Well, I think that's fantastic. And
Yeah.
I like, what I like your message. I like the way you've written the book. It's a great read. It really, people will enjoy it.
Thank you.
A few tears and a lot of anger. I mean, I was getting really mad at this guy. You know, boy, I had some ideas what I'd like to do to this guy, but
I've heard that a lot. I've heard that a lot.
but
But yeah, he
yeah,
took my weakness for kindness, but too bad for him.
yeah.
Too
I'm
bad.
glad. I'm glad you're going after him. That's great.
Yeah,
So before I let you go, I want to show a few other photos because we
sure.
talked about, of course, you being a cabaret singer, which is
Yeah,
wonderful,
yes.
and I just love it. And that was when you were in Times Square. That was, what was that for? That celebration there?
Yeah, that was promoting the cabaret show, the book launch event.
Wow,
Yeah,
wow, that's
yes.
fantastic.
Thank
And
you.
then we have some other photos. I think I have some other photos here. Just also a little bit about you. um,
Yeah.
here,
So
here are you playing a doctor?
yes, on the left I'm playing a doctor, and on the right it's the same show. It's a show called Miseducation, which I think will be coming out in the fall on one of the platforms. I'm not sure which one of the platforms, but I play a teacher. And I've done some stuff, but this is probably one of my biggest roles. I've done a few shows where I had speaking parts, but this one is a recurring role, so that's really exciting. Yeah.
Well, that's what I wanted. I wanted to show that so people can leave on a little higher,
Yes.
because everybody's like, we want to get this guy. And I'm not sure if this is the right. I have one website. That's Donna Hayes. That's your one about the book, isn't it?
Yeah, no, that's my performance website.
Oh, that's your performance website. Well, you
Yes.
can see a lot of stuff on there.
Yes, that's my performance website. And the one you just showed is my coaching website. And people could, if they want to connect with me on social media, it's I am Donna_Hayes. That's my handle on Instagram. I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm also on um, Facebook.
Well,
Yes.
Donna Marie Hayes, I think you are just fantastic. So
Thank you.
impressive. You've
Thank
done
you.
so much. Um, and as a girl, like in many ways, just starting off with nothing, and you
Yeah.
have made it, and you've made it big, and you lost a little bit, but you've gained it all back with this book. And I
Yes.
think as a matter of fact, I think I told you at the time, I hope it's not your last book because you write so well, and
No,
I
thank.
think there's there's more writing in you.
Yes, yes, I think so as well. Actually, I have another call after this, and we'll talk about that. So yes.
Okay. Well, Donna, great. Thank you so much for joining me on Joy on Paper Live. I'm so glad that now I have the ability to see people and really so that you could tell your story and people could see how impressive you are. And it's been an absolute joy to talk to you today. Thank you so much for joining me.
It's a pleasure, and I appreciate you having me. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
It was so much fun to talk to Donna Marie Hayes. Her book is really great. I hope that you'll get it. These Broken Roads, Scammed and Vindicated, One Woman's Story. Wow. She's gone through a lot, but boy, she's overcome it. And she is a fantastic person, a wonderful human being. So do check into her website and also her empowerment website. And if you know anybody, if you're dating, if you know anybody who's dating, if you know anybody who wants to read an interesting story, this book is great. And please subscribe to Joy on Paper Live so that I can bring you more interviews with interesting people like Donna Marie. And like, comment, share, and do all the things that one is supposed to do here on YouTube. And you never know what book will inspire you. Now that you have heard Donna Marie's story, I'm going to play the video again. And then please subscribe to Joy on Paper Live.
Into strength and step around the highway, New York, New York. I wanna wake in the city that doesn't sleep to find I'm a queen of I was just passing that doesn't sleep to find I'm a queen. Mama ain't around. Daddy is sleeping, and Mama ain't around. We're gonna twist it, twist it, twist it, till we turn the house down.